Throughout history, a handful of audacious criminals have pulled off thefts so daring, so clever, and so outrageous that they have become legends. Today, we are looking at 6 of the greatest heists ever committed. We have got the man who walked the Mona Lisa straight out of the Louvre, a gang that tunneled into a national bank, a robbery so perfectly unsolved that empty frames still hang on the museum walls, and a mystery hijacker who leapt from a plane with the cash and was never seen again. Every one of these really happened. Let's get into it. Let's begin with the theft that made the most famous painting in the world. On the morning of August 21st, 1911, a man named Vincenzo Peruggia walked into the Louvre Museum in Paris. But Peruggia was no stranger to the building. He was an Italian handyman who had actually worked there and had even helped build the protective case for the Mona Lisa itself. Wearing one of the white smocks that the museum workers wore, he blended right in. He simply lifted the painting off the wall, took it to a quiet stairwell, removed it from its frame, hid it under his smock, and walked straight out the door. The theft was not even noticed until the next day. The painting was so famous that police questioned hundreds of people and even brought in the artist Pablo Picasso for questioning. But the Mona Lisa was hiding in plain sight, stashed in a trunk in Peruggia's small Paris apartment, where it stayed for 2 whole years. He was finally caught in 1913 when he tried to sell it to an art dealer in Florence, Italy, claiming that he only wanted to return it to its homeland. Ironically, it was this very theft that made the Mona Lisa the global icon it is today. In the early hours of August 8, 1963, a gang of 15 men pulled off one of the most famous robberies in British history. Their target was a Royal Mail train, traveling from Glasgow to London, carrying sacks full of used banknotes. Led by a mastermind named Bruce Reynolds, the gang had a clever plan. They tampered with the train's signals, rigging a green light to show red, which forced the train to stop at a quiet country bridge. The gang then swarmed the train. They uncoupled the engine in the first 2 carriages and formed a human chain to unload 120 mail bags. In all, they made off with £2.6 million, an absolutely staggering sum at the time, worth tens of millions today. For a while, they had completely gotten away with it. But the police eventually tracked down the gang through fingerprints left behind at their hideout farm. Most of the robbers were caught and handed very long prison sentences. But one of them, Ronnie Biggs, became infamous when he escaped from prison and fled the country, evading capture for decades while living it up abroad in Brazil. Our next heist has been called the Heist of the Century. In February of 2003, in the city of Antwerp, Belgium, the very heart of the world's diamond trade, thieves broke into a vault that was supposed to be impenetrable. The vault sat 2 floors underground, protected by 10 separate layers of security. That reportedly included a lock with 100 million possible combinations, infrared heat detectors, a magnetic field, and a seismic sensor. It was considered one of the most secure vaults in the entire world. And yet, over one single weekend, a team of Italian thieves known as the School of Turin defeated every single layer. Led by a man named Leonardo Notarbartolo, who had rented an office in the building for years just to study the security, the gang cracked open over 100 safe deposit boxes. They escaped with diamonds, gold, and jewelry valued at over $100 million. It remains the largest diamond heist in history. Notarbartolo was eventually caught, partly thanks to evidence he carelessly left behind in the trash. But most of the diamonds were never recovered. This next story is the only unsolved case of air piracy in American history. On November 24, 1971, a man who gave his name as Dan Cooper boarded a flight from Portland to Seattle. He was described as a calm, polite man in his mid-40s, wearing a neat business suit. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a flight attendant a note. It said that he had a bomb in his briefcase. Cooper demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. When the plane landed in Seattle, his demands were met, and he released all of the passengers. Then, he ordered the crew to take off again, this time heading for Mexico. But somewhere over the dark, wooded wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper did the unthinkable. He lowered the plane's rear staircase, and he jumped out into the freezing night with the cash strapped to his body. He was never seen again. Despite one of the largest manhunts in FBI history, the man known as D.B. Cooper was never identified. The only real trace ever found was a small bundle of the ransom money, discovered by a young boy on a riverbank 9 years later. Our next heist is the single biggest art theft in history, and to this very day, it remains completely unsolved. In the early hours of March 18, 1990, in Boston, 2 men dressed as police officers knocked on the side door of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. They told the security guards that they were responding to a disturbance call. The guards let them in. It was a fatal mistake. Once inside, the thieves overpowered the 2 guards, tied them up, and left them in the basement. Then, for the next 81 minutes, they moved through the museum entirely at their leisure. They stole 13 priceless works of art, including the only known seascape ever painted by Rembrandt and a rare masterpiece by the Dutch master Vermeer. The total value of the stolen art is estimated at around $500 million, making it the most valuable art theft ever. And yet, decades later, not a single piece has ever been recovered. The museum still proudly displays the empty frames where the paintings once hung, patiently waiting for their return. And there is a $10 million reward still on offer to this day for anyone who can help bring them back. For our final heist, we go to the city of Fortaleza, Brazil, in 2005 for a robbery that played out exactly like a movie. A gang set their sights on the vault of the Banco Central, the central bank, which held tons of physical cash. But the vault was far too strong to break into directly. So, the gang came up with an incredibly ambitious plan. They were going to tunnel in. Months earlier, the gang rented a house a block away from the bank and set up a fake landscaping company as a cover story, which conveniently explained all the dirt and soil they were hauling away. Then, they began to dig. Over about 3 months, they secretly dug a tunnel around 80 meters long, heading straight for the bank. And this was no crude hole in the ground. The tunnel was a genuine work of engineering, complete with wooden supports, electric lighting, and even air conditioning to survive the brutal underground heat. Finally, over one weekend, they broke up through the floor of the vault and made off with around $70 million in untraceable banknotes. It was one of the largest bank heists in all of history. And although many of the gang were later caught, most of the money was never seen again. And there they are. 6 of the most audacious heists ever pulled off. A handyman who simply pocketed the Mona Lisa, a gang who tunneled into a national bank, and a mysterious hijacker who vanished into the night sky. Whether they were caught or got away clean, these criminals all share one thing in common, a level of sheer nerve that is honestly hard to believe. If you enjoyed this one, then steal a quick moment to hit that subscribe button for more weird history every week. And tell me down in the comments which of these heists impressed you the most. I'll see you in the next one.